Before we jump into today's training on my Twitter sharing system, I'd like to recap a little bit from video 1. If you remember, my biggest motivator was not being a financial burden on my family. Since I had a kidney transplant, I needed a new way to make money, and that's why I came online. Now, I started my blog, started using Twitter, and after using Twitter after a few years, things started to go really well. I went from about 2,500 followers to over 100,000 followers in about 2 years. I was number 6 on the Forbes top social media power influencers list, 13 and 14. I was number 2 on the top 100 marketing influencers for 2016. And a little while after that, I was number 19 out of 100 on the top social media marketing influencers. Today I'll be sharing my Twitter sharing system, which I like to call the Chunky Sharing System. My Chunky Sharing System is a small piece of my upcoming complete 12-week live training called Tweet Like an Entrepreneur. Now, my Tweet Like an Entrepreneur 12-week live training will help you fix pretty much 99% of the problems you have on Twitter. Things like spending time on Twitter but not seeing results, how to drive traffic to your blog, building a Twitter email funnel to get subscribers in and customers out, how to make money on Twitter with or without a blog, and how to grow your following with real and targeted people, and much more. My Chunky Sharing System was developed basically when I was first on Twitter. I had spent like 5 to 8 hours a day wasting time, and after a while I needed a way to condense that and figure a way to get in and get out, and that's where the Chunky Sharing System came from. Now, my Chunky Sharing System is a 2-part system. One, it's a post-day system and a non-post-day system. The way I share on post days is much different than the ways I share on non-post days. And I'm going to walk you through both because you really need both to have success with my system. Now, before we jump into it, let me share this 8-year truth. Most of my retweets come 10 to 20 minutes after I share a tweet. All right. So keep that in mind as we go through the Chunky system and why that's important. Now, the Chunky system just means I tweet in chunks. Okay. Each chunk is 4 linked tweets in total, and each is scheduled in advance through Hootsuite. Each tweet is sent 30 to 40 minutes apart after the next. So in the example, tweet 1, 30 minutes later, tweet 2, 30 minutes later, tweet 3, 30 minutes later, tweet 4. Now you share 3 tweets from other people, and then the 4th tweet, the last in the chunk, is always your stuff, whether it's a blog post, ebook, video, whatever. Each chunk ends with your stuff, so when people visit your stream, your tweet is the first thing they see. Each chunk is separated by 1.5 to 2 hours, basically giving the last chunk time to do its thing and your last tweet to do work and get attention for you while you're walked away from Twitter. Now, you should be available to pop in and reply to any comments or questions or thank people for tweeting you about 45 minutes after your last tweet in the chunk. You want people to know that you're real and you're there to engage with them and not just scheduling to schedule things. As your tweets go out in your chunk, you just have to pop into Twitter for a few minutes after each tweet. You want to reply to comments, retweets, etc. After that, you're free to leave Twitter until you start another chunk. Now, let's break down the time you save using the Chunky system. So let's say your first chunk goes out at 9 a.m., second at 9:35, third at 10:10, fourth at 10:45. That is now almost 2 hours of activity on Twitter, but you popped in a little bit here and there, which equaled maybe 15 to 30 minutes. So you look like you're on Twitter for 2 hours, but in reality, you physically popped in for maybe 20 to 30 minutes, which saves you a huge amount of time. So a lot of activity, but you physically didn't have to spend all that time there. Now that you know how the system breaks down, let's see how I use it for non-post day and post day. Each time you share blog posts, you tweak the title and hashtags. You want the title to say same thing, but you want it to say it in a different way. So say the title, but you can use different words, different arrangement, so it says the same thing. Example of how I'd set up tweets. So for example, say I have a new post, Twitter tips post. At the end of chunk 1, I would go with 10 Twitter tips you need to know, link, hashtags. End of chunk 2, do you know the 10 Twitter tips you must know? Hashtags. 3, 10 Twitter tips for bloggers, entrepreneurs, matching hashtags. And then the end of chunk 4, 10 Twitter tips to grow your small business. Now, all tweets look different, but they say the same thing. But we've targeted people who like questions. We targeted people that like stats using numbers. We targeted bloggers, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. Now, we do that because it gives you the best chance to get in front of as many different people. Some people like questions. Some people like stats. Some people want targeted information. And we do the same thing with images. I mix them up because some people like funny, some people like text-based, some people like serious. I mix up the images also. And again, just give me a better chance to get in front of more people. Now, this is my non-post day system. On non-post day, I pick 2 of my older blog posts to share for that day. I also share a 1 quote in the morning chunk. And between chunk 1 and 2, I'd like to share an image quote or a business or social media stat image. Because people like that and it boosts engagement and it frees up more of my time. Now, I share each of my 2 posts 2 times for that day, depending on how many chunks I do. So if I do first chunk, people's tweets tweet a quote, and then post one of my 2 posts for that day. Second chunk, same exact thing, but then I post at the end of the chunk my post 2 for that day. How I'd set it up. Say I'm going to do 4 chunks in that day and have 2 posts. One is blogging, one is social media. So first chunk, I would end it with my blogging post. Second chunk would be my social media post. And then if I did a third chunk, I'd go back and reshare my blog post. And then chunk 4, I'd go back and reshare my social media post. Again, using the advice from post day, changing the hashtags and changing the titles. Now post day, I save even more time since I share the image quote between chunk 1 and chunk 2. I share my image quote about an hour and a half after chunk 1, and it sits there for about an hour and a half to 2 hours before I do another chunk. Now, let's break down the full time you could save, like a complete day. If you use my system for a whole day, this is how much time it would save you. So you start the chunk at 9 a.m., it ends at 10:45. Then an hour and a half later, at 12:15, I share my image quote. Chunk 2 starts at 1.5 to 2 hours later after image quote. Say 2 p.m. and it ends about 3:45. So from 9 a.m. to about 3:45, you have about 7 hours of activity, but in reality, you physically only popped in here and there for a total of maybe 30 to 60 minutes. Okay, so that's the huge savings. So you on Twitter, it looks like you were there for 7 hours, but you physically popped into Twitter maybe an hour total throughout the day, broken up throughout the day. That's the amount of savings you can save if you use the system correctly. Now that you know how to set up the chunky system, let's talk about what you should and shouldn't be sharing, because what you share can help and hurt your results on Twitter. Now, this advice applies to blog post day and non-blog post day. So when you choose to share things, I like to do a mix. I like to share people, big brands, people below me, people at the same level as me, and people a little above me. Now, you do this because the people below you and at the same level as you will be the fastest people you'll build relationships with and will start to retweet you. The big brands will never retweet you. The people above you, at some point, they will retweet you. So while you're waiting for the home run tweets from the big guy, you're in the middle working with people around your level, building relationships, starting to build a relationship as far as tweeting each other, and that's how you do it while you wait for the big guys to come in. Now, I like to tweet about 80% of my tweets being targeted to what I'm there for. So my blog is about blogging, social media, small business, all those things. So all my content is targeted to those things. I like to do 10% personal and 10% random. Random is anything I care about. I like the stock market. I like cars. I like whatever. Anything completely random that I like, I'll post. And personal, a picture of something I did on the weekend or photography I take. That way it mixes it up and makes you look real and people can relate to that. Now, you need to be careful what you share directly in front of your tweet that goes out at the end of the chunk. So you never share the same topic of your tweet directly in front of you. So for example, at 10 a.m. I have a tweet going out about my Twitter tips post. So the tweet directly in front of that at 9:25 should have nothing to do with Twitter in any way. Now, you do this because people are busy, and the chance of them reading 2 back-to-back posts about the same topic is very small. And also, by sharing the same topic tweet before yours, you automatically cut the chances of your tweet getting clicked by 50%. Because if they see yours and they see the one before it, they're going to choose one or the other. So you automatically hurt yourself by 50%. So you do not share the same topic ever directly in front of your tweet. Now, what you share will either hurt or help your results. Doesn't matter if it's your content or not, That's why you need to choose content wisely of what you share on Twitter. Now in video 3, I will be sharing more about my Tweet Like an Entrepreneur 12-week live training. I've taken everything I've learned over the past 10 years on Twitter and I've crammed it into 12 60 to 90 minute live trainings. And I call this the Tweet Like Entrepreneur course. Now my goal with the live training is simple. I want to help bloggers, marketers, entrepreneurs, and small business owners finally fix the problems they have with Twitter. I see people every day not getting results, complaining that Twitter doesn't work, tweeting to the same 1,000 followers they've had for 5 years. So I'm going to fix things like spending too much time on Twitter and seeing no results, not getting traffic to their blogs, not growing their following with targeted people, not getting any leads or subscribers, and also not making any money on Twitter. Now, I hope you enjoyed my chunky system, and I hope you use it. If you use it correctly, and you use it throughout the day, and you share great content, and you break up the content and the chunks throughout the day, it will work for you. It will get you plenty of attention. It will give you each tweet time to do work for you, and it will give you plenty of free time to go do other things in your business, in your blog. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, leave them in the Facebook comments below, and I hope to see you in video 3. Thank you.